Welcome back to Reassembling. So on today's episode, I'm going to be cleaning out the carbon in the intake ports on my TD42 engine. So this is following on from my last video where I welded the new top section onto my intake manifold. And if you didn't see that video, I'm going to try and post a link to it somewhere here or in the description. I don't know, I'll try and work out this YouTube magic. And you can go and watch that and check out how much carbon was actually on the inside of that manifold. So that's obviously caused by the EGR system on the car. So now it's time to clean out the carbon from the intake ports on the engine. So we'll get into that. So I'm up here in the engine bay now, kneeling on my knee pad because I've got old man knees. And if we look down into the ports here, if I can try and get the bloody light down there. So you can see the carbon buildup on the inside of the runners, and that's obviously on all of the runners. Now this isn't a lot for an engine that's done 200,000 Ks with an EGR. Modern diesels, they are obviously a lot worse. But interestingly enough, as I discovered, so these back cylinders, if it'll pick up on the camera, these back cylinders actually have less carbon buildup on them, or in them I should say. And I also noticed that on the intake manifold as well. So two of them had a lot less carbon buildup on them compared with the other four, which I'm not sure why that is, but it's just an interesting little fact, I guess. Now there's a few different ways that you can clean the intake ports and the valves on an engine. One of those is walnut blasting, which I actually did on my BMW, which has an N54 engine. But the walnut blasting kit that I was using was a mate's, and it was a DIY kit, and it worked, but it was a pain in the ass with moisture getting into the system and the system getting clogged, and it was just a nightmare. It worked really good, but yeah, it just took forever. So I actually had a mate recommend this technique to me. So I haven't tried it before, but we'll find out how it goes. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use some oven clean. So I'll spray that into the ports. And then while I was in Woolies, grab some toothbrushes, which are nice and small to get into the intake ports. So yeah, that'll take care of the scrubbing, hopefully. Don't know how it's actually going to go, but yeah, we'll find out. So let's get into it. The first thing I'm actually going to do is stuff all the intake ports with some rags. So that seems a bit counterintuitive at the moment, considering I want to actually get in there and clean. But I need to pull all these hoses off because I'm actually going to be pulling the rocker cover off. And that's so that I can then basically drop all the valves and I don't get any crap within the engine. So because this is a four-wheel drive, it's got mud and shit everywhere. So by putting the rags in, we'll stop the mud going in or any dirt or any crap, and then we'll pull the rags back out to do the cleaning. I've got the rocker cover off now, so I'm just inspecting the gasket to see whether it's all right to be reused. It's still got a fair bit of flexibility in it, so we'll just whack it back in and see if she leaks or not. So the reason that I've taken the rocker cover off is so that I can undo all of these bolts, which supposedly allows the valves to all drop at the same time. So I had originally planned to just turn the engine over by the crank bolt, but on the TD42, like this, supposedly it's a 55mm socket. And I don't know about you, but that's not something that I carry in my toolbox. I've searched around trying to find anyone locally that has one, and they don't. So I wasn't able to turn the engine over like that. I've tried turning the engine over via the alternator and the power steering nuts, but the belts just slip. So it looks like this is the option that I've got to go with. So we'll see what happens. As you can see, the rockers are all loose, which means that the valves are now all closed. Now that I've scraped all the big chunks out, time to try this oven cleaner, see how it goes. I've left the oven cleaner sit in the port for about 5 minutes now, so I'll start scrubbing with the old toothbrush. Oh, and I'm also wearing gloves this time because when I was cleaning the intake port, that was a big mistake not wearing gloves, so definitely recommend them. Alright, so I've now cleaned it with the toothbrush, wiped it out with a rag, and the actual port looks pretty good. Seems to have cleaned up pretty well. It's just the valve which is still a bit dirty. So I'll try spraying some brake cleaner in there and blow that out with some compressed air and just see how it goes. Well, as you can see, that certainly got all the shit out of the bloody port, but yeah, I might need to put the camera down for doing the rest of this because that got really bloody messy. I've had a few goes cleaning it up off camera with the brake cleaner and it's come up pretty good. It's obviously not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than what it was, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'll now throw you all on a time lapse and do the rest of the ports. Alright, now that we've got the intake ports all cleaned up, it's now time to tighten these rocker shaft bolts. So now's the time that you'd normally check the valve clearances and do all that, but I've done mine not long ago and I'm being lazy, and this is a old tractor engine, so I'm taking the should be right approach. But take it from me, children, say as I do, not as I say. Well, there we have it. All the intake ports and valves are all cleaned up. Now I just need to hook all the hoses back up. Now, as for the oven cleaner, it did actually work, and it was quite good at removing the bulk of the carbon buildup. And then the brake cleaner just worked really good at removing what was left of it. Hope some of you found this video interesting and useful for your own car. So if you did, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now that I've scraped all the chunks out, I'm not talking to you. Go back to what you're doing.